Welcome to a game that goes by the name of Until None Remain. Until None Remain is a third-person shooter which also happens to be a Battle Royale. It is both developed and published by D.W.S studio. It can be played, if I am not mistaken, currently on only Windows platform, Windows operating system, and it can be played only on computer. However, you have two versions of the game available. You have a VR and a non-VR. Virtual reality, right? So you can play it either with or without a VR headset. I played a non-VR version, so my experiences and all of that will be only linked to the non-VR version. The VR version should probably be similar, because, both versions are still versions of the same game. However, there might be differences, and I will not be able to tell you those because, as said, I only played the non-VR. So, before going into a match and explaining the game in depth, I would want to tell you a few things. The first one is that the game explains itself pretty well, and it does so even to a person which never played Battle Royale before, right? So it tells you all of the stuff like ammunition does not respawn, so you should try to grab as much ammunition as you can so that your opponent does not get it, etc, etc. In fact, the game at the start, when you launch it, every time it will put you into a sort of tutorial area. The tutorial area has a long hallway and 3 rooms, and those 3 rooms are divided but they're divided by what's in them. So the first room is focused onto medication and medication as in health restore and armor. The second one is all about grenades, and I say grenades because I don't mean many grenades of one type, but many grenades of many types. We're talking about, I think, 5. I might be mistaken, but I'll get into that later. And the last room is basically a shooting range where you have a wide array of weapons available. Basically, you have all the weapons that you can get in the game available over there, and you can test them. You can test fire them, you can check their range. You can check their rate of fire. For example, the angle at which the grenades from a grenade launcher are shot, etc, etc. And also recoil, bullet sway, I think that's what it is, etc, etc. You can basically play with weapons, is what I'm trying to say. So, upon entering every room, there's a sort of guided tour you can take through the room. So, once you enter the room, there will be one bubble, and if you keep going forward from that one bubble, it's basically an information bubble. And it will always be turned towards your camera, not towards your character, so it's a bit easier to read the text when it's turned towards your camera and not towards your character, which sometimes might be standing in the way. So, these bubbles do explain what does what, and how to use what, and what works in what way. So, for example, jetpacks which allow you to fly are also described as having limited fuel, and there's also described how to use them, and that you can take fall damage if you fly too high up and you don't leave any fuel for the landing, right? So it's just like in reality, as you could expect, even though in reality we don't have jetpacks. But as you would expect, the game does have some level of physics, and fall damage is a thing, so that's good to know, for example, right? And that's all you learned from just reading a jetpack description. There's many of these information bubbles, and it depends on you how much information do you need to know. Because, for example, when you see a gun, there's not much description to that, but you can still read it. But I would say that a regular player would just say, oh hey, gun, I know how that works, and they'll just grab it and use it, and they don't need to read the bubbles. So it purely depends on you. So for example, if let's say if you're someone who knows restoration items in PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, then you will surely know what medical pills in this game do, right? they regenerate your health over time. If I got that correct, if I didn't, I think I did. Well, whatever. So these bubbles are pretty helpful, and they do explain well enough on what to do with such an item or such a weapon or such a piece of equipment and how they work. So that's about the introduction to the game. Now, there is one thing that I would want to point out, and that is that the options menu is pretty well done. You have a wide range of graphics options. You can turn off and turn on motion blur. You can customize the color of your suit. So there is some level of customization, and you can change like graphical details, etc., etc., etc. So it's a good enough menu, I would say, right? The only part where I find the menu a bit lacking is the volume part, because, you know, like, I would, for example, want a audio effect volume slider there, because you got only two. You got master volume and voice volume, and you know, I guess both of these are okay. But if there was like a sound effect slider, I would be pretty happy. Anyway, so that's about the pre-match phase. Oh, I said I would go into the grenades a bit further, so why not? I mean, in the first room where you have the restoration and armor, you are introduced to armor types, which are permanent and they cannot be destroyed. So once you pick them up, they basically are a permanent damage reduction until the end of the level. So they are a pretty major advantage. They cannot be destroyed. However, there are 4 pieces of armor, so it's not like you find just one armor suit and that's it. No, you have to find them part by part. And even if you find all 4 parts of the armor, there are still some bits of your body which will remain exposed, and you can be shot into them and you will receive increased damage. Then you are introduced to restoration items, as in medkits, which restore your health instantly, pills, which restore your health over time, and stims, as in stimulation drugs, which will increase your damage dealt. Then there's the second room, which introduces you to grenades. You got regular grenades, you know, like fragmentation. They will explode in an area. Then you got... what are they? You got teleportation grenades, which once thrown... And, I mean, you take a teleportation grenade, you throw it, and when it lands, you will be teleported to the place where it landed. So you can use that to, like, flank your opponents and stuff. And... or like move from cover to cover. That's where I can see it being very useful. And then you also got like Tesla grenade, which does damage over time in an area. I think that's what it said. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at remembering descriptions of grenades. I just see a grenade, I take it and throw it. That's how I play with them. And, I mean, usually. I couldn't do that in this game, and I'll tell you at the end why I couldn't. And then there was also a stun grenade, which I do not know how long did it stun for, because once again, I couldn't use the grenades. However, then we got the weapons room, and all the weapons work fine. I had no problems with them. There is variety, and I would say there's maybe a little bit of imbalance between them. But other than that, they all work perfectly. I had no issues with them, and they were fine. There were some unique ones, like for example, grenade launcher, which launches a mine, and the mine shot, or the mine grenade has 2 phases. One where you launch it and it's basically a grenade, and then the phase 2 that when it impacts the ground, the projectile will not just explode, but it will explode and it will leave a mine behind. And if a player walks over it, including you, so you can in the end kill yourself if you're not careful. If a player walks over that mine, it will explode. It's triggered by motion, so you know that's a pretty neat tool. You can like set up a minefield and hope that no one will hear you doing that, because it sure is pretty loud. And that's about it. There are also, as the game itself says in the trailer, or well, oh yeah, you could call it a trailer on the Steam page, on the Steam store page. It has long-range combat, close-range combat, and then, you know, like the mid-range combat, sort of. Although there are no SMGs in the game, some weapons fire faster than the others. You know, like rifles and shotguns, etc. But as said, there are no SMGs, so the mid-range combat is sort of not there. You know, you got rifles, shotguns, pistols, and then you got a sniper rifle, a rocket launcher, a grenade launcher, but the SMG is just non-existent. That's what I would consider mid-range, but hey, that might be just me. Maybe you consider a rifle a mid-range tool, or well, mid-range weapon. And you would be probably correct, because SMGs are more often than not considered a close-range weapon, but whatever, that's subjective. Now, that's about the tutorial area and explanation of the game. Then you got the match part, and I do have a few things to say. The wait time in the lobby is pretty long, but I guess that can be avoided because the game is, I forgot to say that, the game is in early access, as currently is the trend for any Battle Royale. So, I think that can be adjusted. It's just that at the time of my playtest, the waiting times in the lobby are pretty long. So, I mean, as compared to other games. Because, like, let's say in Fortnite, you wait just about 40 to 50 seconds before a lobby fills up and the game starts. In here, you wait about 2 to 3 minutes. That's my experience so far. So, now to the match itself. That was about the lobby. The matches last 10 minutes at max. So that's pretty nice, you know, the matches are not anyhow long. They're pretty quick, and the maps aren't anyhow massive either, so everything is sort of focused around the idea of the matches not being long, which is certainly nice. And even more so for a Battle Royale game, because I don't know how you, but sometimes I don't want to play Fortnite because I know that the match, if I'll be performing well, they can drag on. They really can. Or will drag out. Is that how to say it? Basically, the matches will be long if I'll be performing well. Whereas in here, if you perform well, the match can end sooner than 10 minutes into the game. I mean, not into the game, 10 minutes later. Which is pretty nice. So, as in most Battle Royales, or well, every Battle Royale, players are spawned randomly around the map, and there are pieces of equipment, as in weapons, armor, restoration items, etc., scattered around the map, and they have to go and collect those. Now, when it comes to the spawn locations, I think they are randomized every time, but I think, don't quote me on that, but I think that there's some sort of control over what gets spawned where. So it's not like you have 50 weapons in one room and no weapons in the others. There was some attention put to this, you know. The equipment spawn locations are pretty well thought through. You know, like let's say in one room you will have one part of the armor, in the other room you will have another part of armor, so it's not like you spawn and you get 4 parts of armor, but no weapons. That's not gonna happen. So anyway, at the start there's this sort of time window when everyone is trying to find as much as they can and like hamster it all for themselves. So there are some options as to avoiding others, but on the one map that I played more, there are 2 maps you can play. There's indoors and outdoors. And on the indoors one, I didn't find any shortcuts or like hidden pathways. So if you encounter someone who has a gun and you don't have a gun, which I don't think is going to happen, but it in theory could, then I don't think you're going to be able to run away from them. Because there's no shortcuts or anything, so That's a bit of a problem. And there's not much cover either in the indoors. I mean, in some areas there is, but mostly in the side rooms on the edge of the map where I think most players do spawn. I mean, that's where I spawn thrice in the outer areas of the map. There's not much cover inside the rooms or even in the halls. When you get closer towards the middle of the map, it gets better. There's a lot of cover, so that's nice. But on the outer circle of the map, there's not much of it. Now, when you're playing on the inside, on the inside map, there is one issue, and that is if you're inside the gas. I mean, if you're going to be soon inside a gas, because this game, just like the other Battle Royales, has some sort of limitation. You know, like you can't stay outside the playable area for too long because you're gonna die. That's how other games do it. Well, this one, if you stay outside the playable area when you're not supposed to be there, you're getting locked out and you're gonna die. For example, when you're playing on the outside, you can approach the next playable area from a multitude of angles. You know, like you can approach from north, from south, from east, from west. But on the indoors, actually not inside, but on the indoors map, there's only some entrances you can use, because you know that on the others, there is an enemy waiting for you and they'll just shoot you the moment that you get closer. Because it's viewed from third person, so they don't necessarily have to stick their head into the doors to be able to see that you're approaching them, right? Now, that's the only issue I can think of when it comes to a match. Otherwise, it works fine enough. You know, for an indie game, it works fine. I've had some good experiences with the guns and with the maps themselves. But there's one issue that I had, and that's with the game not explaining you what to watch out for once you get into a map. You know, like, on the indoors map, you can encounter turrets. And those turrets, they will just shoot you. You know, like, without any warning. They will just turn around if they're currently facing in a different direction, they'll turn around and they'll start shooting on you. And I think they're using a plasma weapon. It's not doing that much damage, but it's not gonna stop firing. You know, like, anytime when you get into its range, it will start firing on you. So, the best way to get rid of it is to destroy it. However, I would like to have that information beforehand, because the first match that I played this game, I nearly died to one of the turrets, because I didn't have an idea what was firing at me from what direction, and when I figured it out, I was already missing 1/3 of my health. So that's the only thing that I would point out when it comes to the matches and the maps themselves. Like in any Battle Royale, being fast and quickly exploring and grabbing the valuable and important things is key to winning, right? So, like grabbing some health restoration and armor and a good gun. Because I don't know the numbers, because the game doesn't tell you any. Except for healing for 30 health, that's about it. The game doesn't tell you how much damage does each gun do, right? So I imagine that, for example, pistol does less damage than a plasma rifle or plasma pistol. But I can only imagine that, as said, because the game doesn't tell you. So let's say this game ever makes it into a professional scene, then you would probably want to know what to look out for, what to watch out for, if you should grab a regular pistol or a plasma pistol, etc., etc. So that's the other thing which I want to point out about the matches. That there should probably be some numbers when it comes to... it's actually not about the matches, that's more about the game itself. Not showing you many numbers and telling you which gun is better, you know? Because I don't think that a pistol is better than a plasma pistol, but I might be wrong. But then again, I can only guess. But when it comes to matches, aside from the hazard, like the turrets, which are not player controlled, you know, they're system controlled and they'll fire on anyone who gets close. Aside from that, I would say that the matches were, I mean, they played out fine. And now to the final part. Bugs and features that could use a fix. I'm not saying they need a fix, I'm saying they could use a fix. So, as I've already said, there's no explanation of the map environment, such as, like the hazards, like the turrets, and also power-ups. You got, around the middle part of the map, the part where you also have a lot of cover, there are some power-ups. Some of them, like there's a power-up which has logo of radiation, and when you pick it up, it doesn't damage your health, it doesn't cause you to die of, like, gamma whatever, it just doesn't do anything weird, it just increases your damage dealt and reload speed, so it's basically like a stim drug. But the game doesn't tell you that in any way until you pick it up. And then you also got a medical cross, which, thankfully, anyone who ever played a video game knows what that means. It heals you, but, it could also have some different effect. It could, for example, increase your damage, resistance, but again, the game doesn't tell you until you pick it up. So that could be explained a bit more, like the maps could be explained a bit more while you're loading into them. For example, while you're in the lobby waiting for the game to launch, or there could be, let's say, a for-through added, in which there will be information about each map, like that there are turrets, power-ups, etc., etc. Now, that was more like a feature that could use a fix. And onto the bugs. There are 3 bugs that I encountered, and all 3 of them had a mediocre to major impact onto the gameplay. Like I said that the matches played out fine, and by that I mean that the matches, I didn't have any problem with, like, cover not working, etc., etc. That's probably more about the game rather than the matches, but whatever. The first bug is that if you hold down shift but don't move, your stamina will drain. And you might be thinking, who would ever do that? Well, no one. But the point is, you can set sprint to toggle. And if you do that, and you like push shift, run a bit, and then forget that you actually have toggle on sprint, your stamina will be drained until you move again, and you won't be able to run when you do. I mean, when you do want to move. I'm sorry. When you will want to move. Damn flu. So that's one bug. The other is that weapons sometimes do not switch or take very long to switch. Now, when you're fighting cover versus cover, when you're both in cover, that's not as much of an issue as if you're rushing against someone and you run out of, like, let's say, shotgun ammunition because you didn't find any, and you only had these 5 bullets which are in the shotgun's chamber? I think it's chamber. And then when you want to switch to another gun, it might take like 2 seconds to switch to it. Or it might not switch at all. That happened to me as well. So that's another bug, and then there's last one which I encountered. I haven't encountered any others, right? And considering this is in early access, I would say that's good. The third bug is that usables, or well, consumables, cannot be used. I'm not kidding. The game tells you that you can use consumables /grenades by pressing 4, 5, 6 on the keyboard and then clicking left mouse button. I tried that, it didn't work. I tried both 4, 5, 6 on top of the keyboard and then 4, 5, 6 on right side of the keyboard. Neither worked. So it might be just me. I tried to look into options. I didn't find any key bindings. I didn't find any key bindings or controls or the option to rebind my controls. So I tried multiple times and it didn't work, any single one of them, both in the tutorial and in the game. So that's the last bug which I would think impacts the game the most, because you can deal with your weapon sometimes not switching or taking long to switch. You just keep using one weapon, right? You can also deal with the sprint. You'll just be more careful about when you push shift and when you don't. And when should you push it twice if you have toggle like me? But usable is not being usable. I mean, there was a point at which I had not free, but like triple pills. You know, like the item that restores your health. And I couldn't use them. Or I knew that there was someone in cover in front of me, and I couldn't throw a grenade on them. And I couldn't flank them with the teleportation grenade. You know, like, it's stuff like that, which I think took the most enjoyment. Not enjoyment, but took the most... Basically, I think that it was the largest bug, right? And now, lastly to the overall information. The key was provided to me free of charge, and I was wondering, where would I be able to play? Well, turns out, you can only play on America, Northern America, which for someone like me, who lives in Europe, could be a ping problem, so take that in consideration. That might change later down the line, but currently it's only available in Northern America. Then again, as said, it's in early access, so it might change. Next thing is that there are pretty long waiting times in the lobby. But I think I've said that earlier. You gotta wait 2 to 3 minutes before a match starts. But I get it. You know, like there's not many players yet, so it might take very long time for them to gather up for a match. And if not enough players gather, then the lobby will be filled with bots, so you can still play it, right? And considering that no other Battle Royale has bots, in case that not enough players are present, I'd say that this game at least tries to fill that void out. By putting in the bots. When it comes to the game and its performance, I'd say that it ran fine, pretty fine, great even. There were only a few moments when the game stuttered for me, and that was mostly when the play area was limited. You know, like when it was cut by the gas. That's when it lagged for me for like half a second to a second. And also upon entering some rooms, but that was only like specific rooms. There was like a room with a Röntgen scanner, and it happened in no other room, only in that one. And when it comes to animations, they all ran fine, and they also looked nice. You know, like even taking the knife, the character didn't like try to grab its head and then pull out knife of it. No, it reached out with the hand to its back and pulled the knife out of can't think with the flu, but just it reached with the hand behind its knife and pulled behind its back, and pulled the knife out. It looked nice. And if there's one last thing that I would want to complain about, it's that all weapons have same reload times, and that's, you know, like if a assault rifle reloads at the same speed as a pistol does, why would you ever want to use the pistol then? Pistol is given into the hands of a player with the words that instead of reloading a gun, let's say a rifle, it will be much faster to take a pistol and shoot at least one bullet with it and maybe finish your opponent. You know, like, I think that weapons should have different reload times. There, you know, like rocket launcher shouldn't reload as fast as a pistol, because why would you want to use the pistol again, as I've said? Because the rockets are pretty fast, you know. They're a bit slower than the pistol, but they're pretty fast, so why would you want to use a pistol there? And that's about it. Once again, this was not sponsored promotion or anything. It was sort of like a review of an early access indie title. So all that I've said in here, except for the bugs I think are pretty straightforward and they need a fix. I think that the rest is you know, like subjective. But I hope it helped you at least in some way, if you're currently deciding whether to play the game or not. Or, no, not to play, whether to buy the game or not. I I guess that if I say that, I should also provide a summarization. I'm sorry. English is my second language, and currently, when I'm making this video, I have flu, and it's not as easy to try and think of what to say and how to say it, and if that's the correct way to say it. So, I wanted to say that if you have a bunch of friends, and if you live in America, and if you're looking for something which is sort of, like a third-person shooter, a Battle Royale, which doesn't take very long to play, the matches of the game don't take very long to play, I would say that this game is worth $10, currently $7, euros. But if you're looking for any other game, I'm not sure. Okay, this is a game I could see myself playing if I had a bunch of friends and we just wanted to clown around and shoot each other and rage and have fun. But if you're looking for a more serious experience, I don't think I would recommend this. But once again, it's just subjective. Well, I wouldn't recommend this at least until the bugs are fixed. So, that's all from me, and I'll see you next time.
Round 2.